All right, guys, Cody here with Denver Area Classifieds with another interview. This one's a little different. We've got a company out in Nebraska, and it's basically what he's got customers here in Colorado, and he's a member of our Denver Area Classifieds Facebook group, and he's gained some traction, and a lot of people want to know what he's all about here, and hopefully we can gather some more business and have him come to Colorado and visit us more often. So right now we have Glade, and he is with Family Farm Beef Box, and we've got a few questions here, Glade. But first, when we get started, why don't you just kind of tell people just a little bit about you, and then we'll get into some of these questions we have.
Sure. Well, glad to be here, Cody. My name's Glade. I'm a lifelong cattle farmer in central Nebraska. I actually live on the same cattle farm that I grew up in, still in the same house that I grew up in. Mom and Dad were to the house that my grandma, and I tell people I've only been to that after I got married to my family. So we've been here for a while. My grandfather actually moved here with a couple wagons pulled by mules. Originally is how we ended up in central Nebraska. So we're kind of glad to be here, kind of proud of what we're doing. And I do have a wife, and baby number 5 just arrived in my house. So we've got a full little house. We raise cattle and kids.
Oh, congrats. Yeah, I think I saw some pictures there. So you've got your hands full. So why don't you tell people, what did you do before the beef box? So, obviously you're a farmer, but kind of go into what you did and why you got started with this little business here.
Yeah. Well, basically, a little over a year ago, it's not exactly a secret that margins are pretty tight in agriculture. And to be completely honest, we'd done nothing but lose money the last while. We've been going backwards, and you can only go backwards so long. Everybody's got bills to pay. And so literally about a year and a half ago, I had a conversation. I said, look, I've got to change, but I've got an idea. I know what better beef tastes like. Basically charge what the grocery store charged. We'd make a little money. And so that was it. That was my whole business plan. I said 3 months. If I can work in 3 months down and get a job else. So we were brand. I didn't honestly even know how to use Facebook. At that point, I was one of 3% of people much that use Facebook. And I was honestly I thought, what I knew about Facebook was that my wife, my mother, and my grandmother all were scrolling through the Facebook. And I thought, well, there's all the target I want to sell beef, just as well learn how to use Facebook. And I also noticed that for the most part, everything they were looking at was I would call it garbage, not evil, nothing. It was just trash, just stuff. And I thought, well, my marketing philosophy, because pictures and stories, totally not garbage, I might have their attention for a few moments. And then maybe, just maybe, we could tell them about our beef. People a half or a quarter of beef over $1,000, and you got to have a giant freezer and a commitment to eating piles of beef, and it just doesn't work for most people. So we came up with the strategy that we would divide that beef up further. 30 pounds was our original size. We were right at about $200 for that 30-pound mark. So to start off, we literally butchered one beef a year ago last spring. I bought $40 worth of boxes on the internet. And I bought a stamp with our logo on it. And I offered to meet people from Cozad, Nebraska, along the interstate, all the way to Omaha. Because there's not many people where I live, to be honest. We like to push, buy local, buy local. Well, if I was selling beef and buying and selling it locally, well, cattle outnumber people by a long ways in my county. And it'd be pretty slim pickings for how many people would actually need it. But if I drove to Omaha 250 miles one way, well, there was about 1 million people right along the interstate. So we butchered that beef. I learned how to use Facebook, and I tried to utilize my skills of knowing how to make friends with people in real life into this social media world, and offered to meet people. Try a little box of this homegrown beef at an affordable price and conveniently sized. Well, lo and behold, we sold that first beef. We drove to Omaha and had 10, 12 customers. I came home and I told my dad, I said, you know what I think just happened? I think I found a way to capitalize on liking to visit with people and tell stupid jokes. Because I came back with a bunch of friends. We sit there and visit in the parking lot, and I tell them about our beef, and I learn about them. And well, I'm still selling beef to some of those same people that from that very first delivery. So flash forward, we went ahead and butchered another beef, and then a couple more. And then a little over a year later, flash forward, people out of state wanted us to be able to ship them some beef. Well, all totaled, we've served close to 1,000 people, and we've shipped beef to 25 states, including Alaska and Hawaii. Colorado, of course, being our neighbor state, kind of a prime opportunity for us if we were to expand our personal delivery service. You know, we can ship there in one day with FedEx. And so it's a ground ship scenario, relatively economical. Right now we're $30 to ship our 30-pound beef box. It's a flat rate. And when it's all penciled out, you know, the price matching, we can bring good quality homegrown beef to folks in Colorado that's been dry aged 14 days. And just, we literally skim the cream of the crop off this cattle crop to turn it into family farm beef. And we can set it on people's doorsteps at a price that is very competitively priced with the grocery store, with regular grocery stores, and even less than a nice grocery store. So we feel excited about what we're doing, being able to ship to people to Omaha right now for free, because we have the volume to be able to do that. We'd like to be able to do that with the Denver area, maybe Fort Collins, make a little path down through there, and be able to have some drop sites to be able to justify making that trip out there. And we're not far from it now, but as we gain, like you said, gain a little traction, gain a little letting people know, word of mouth gets around, we'll be able to just make that personal trip, which promotes one of our most valuable things, I think, that we're offering with Family Farm Beef Box. That yes, we are beef that's grown on multi-generational family farms. Yes, we are beef that's been processed in a small family-run butcher shop, hand-cut, hand-wrapped in traditional butcher paper, dry-aged 14 days. But we also like to specialize on, or like to joke that we're bringing back the milkman. Bringing back the relationship with your growers, the people that make your food, because there's a lot of concerns about food production, where it comes from today, because things have changed, farming practices have changed, and so there's a lot of concerns. And I don't blame someone for being concerned about the food they eat, because they're going to put it in their body, they're going to put it in their kid's body. Well, what we do is we want to come along and just be an open book. You have concerns? Let's talk about it. Let's talk about what we don't do. Let's talk about what we will do and why. Because in the end, it's the farmers out here, the family farmers that really do honestly want the best for their animals. They want the best for their land. They're not in it to make a quick buck. This is a long-term thing. You know, you do something for this many generations, you do it because you care about doing a good job and passing it on. And those are the values that people care about. So we're excited about what we're doing. We're excited to talk to you today. So there's pretty much our whole background story.
That's awesome. And it's very inspiring. You know, when I'm reaching out to some of these businesses, and a lot of people don't know them, the stories are just so impressive and so inspiring. And, you know, with the background I have in marketing, one thing that we're taught is there's an inside reality and an outside perception. So the outside perception is how a consumer or client or customer sees the business on, you know, basically from the website, you know, marketing and newspapers and social media. And then when you have the inside reality, that's when the customer jumps into the store and experiences what this business is like inside. So here, your inside reality would be right now, what we're doing. And from just going to the website, it's hard for somebody to know who you are and the passion that you have in this industry. And so bringing those two together is a big, big opportunity. And I feel like once businesses and once you create that and allow your story to be told, like what you just did, will just help everybody get a better understanding of exactly what your mission is and what you're out there to do, not just for your family, but for everybody's family who takes advantage of your product. So my next thing would be is, Colorado is an extreme fitness state, and a lot of CrossFit. These guys are eating paleo, and so it's a lot of beef. And we, I say, because I'm in the fitness industry and I've been in it for so long, that we do care about what we put in our body. So I had somebody bring up a question the other day when I told them I was going to be chatting with you, and what it was they didn't understand what dry aged was, and they didn't understand, do the grocery stores do that now, and they have those soaker pads in the meats. Can you explain, how all that is and how you guys are, different in that aspect of it, kind of the healthy aspect of the meat?
Yep. A couple key differences of what we do that the grocery store does not do. And additionally, what there's only a few other really meat type subscription companies. Of course, we don't require a subscription because I don't want somebody to charge my credit card without me wanting to every month anyways. But when you look at the other meat options that are commercial in this nature, you talk about that little soaker pad. And so right from the beginning, what happens is when we take our cattle to our butcher shop, our little butcher shop will process about 15 head of cattle per week. And so when I say that it's hand cut, we're talking attention to detail there. And what they'll do is after the animals butchered, we're going to take that whole beef, that whole entire carcass there, every cut of meat, and we're going to put it in a cooler that's temperature controlled, air controlled, humidity controlled for 14 days. And what happens during that time is there's natural enzymes in the meat that will start to break down the little proteins, and the meat becomes more tender. And also during that time, it's not rocket science, but water evaporates. Water doesn't have flavor. We'll let 10% plus of the weight of that meat evaporate in water. That water leaves, so flavor stays, and that's why dry aged meat has a better flavor than non-dry aged meat. See, what happens for the meat that comes from the even local meat stores to a large extent, and grocery stores, there's only a few places in the country that process all the meat for all of those grocery stores and local meat markets. And those places, like a Tyson manufacturing plant, which there's one about 20 miles from my house, well, they'll process about 6,000 head of cattle per day. Wow. And so you start thinking 6,000 per day. And if you want to dry age those animals for 14 days, where are they going to put those? It's just not physically possible, logistically possible to store that much meat. Well, it's not possible. And then two, all that water that evaporated, well, that water is weight that they can sell as pounds of meat. And so they don't want water to evaporate. So they'll sit there and meticulously spray water on the meat in their shop so that it doesn't evaporate. Once it's been cut up and packaged, okay, well, now it's full of water, and that's why you need that little soaker pad underneath, because it's going to leak as it goes out, and it's going to go out and it's fresh. And you think, well, that's great. It's fresh meat. That's better than frozen, right? Well, that would be the thought, except for the fact that fresh meat, after a day or so, will turn brown. It oxidizes. Well, grocery stores figured out a long time ago that just because that meat legitimately isn't bad after a day or so, and while it's brown, but it's unappetizing, and people aren't going to want to buy it. So therefore, you have the little tray with the little soaker pad and the little plastic wrap that goes over the top of it. And you might notice that a lot of times that plastic wrap is kind of pooched up. Well, that's because they've filled that package with combination of red dye and, or mostly now it's carbon dioxide gas. Poisonous to breathe, but it's fine if you put it around, it's safe if you put it around your meat. But what happens is that carbon dioxide gas will keep that meat a reddish color, a dull red color, for up to a year. A year sitting there on the counter in the refrigerator section. So you think, well, this is great. We have fresh meat. Well, it's fresh, but it's actually really old. You don't know how old it is. And so that's why when you open it up versus when you open up a package of our meat, the smell is totally different. The texture, because of we have a single animal source ground beef, for instance. This is one good beef ground up in here, and the texture is different than what will happen with ground beef in your little discount. Hey, look, this is only $3 something a pound. This is a great deal. Literally, there's these giant grinding machines that will hold about 100 head of cows or 2 semi-loads of cows at one time. Will grind the whole thing up and spit it out into little discount packages. Well, that's where the discount meat comes from. It also makes the texture funny. It's full of water, and it's sat there for a long time, which is why the texture, the smell, and the taste is all funny. And the color, when you open ours up, see, we flash freeze all of our beef as soon as we take it out of the cooler. Out of the cooler, the outside it's turned brown, just like we talked about. And here's another reason why the big processors don't want to do this, because what do we do with that brown beef? Well, we're going to cut all the outside off and throw it away. That's what happens. We do it, though, because it tastes better. That gets thrown away, and the inside is not a dull red color. It's a bright pink color, a bright, attractive, sweet-smelling pink color that when you flash freeze it, literally almost 100% of that freshness will be preserved in the meat. So when you get it out of the freezer, you can actually just take a steak that's frozen and throw it right on the freezer, or you let it thaw in the fridge overnight, if you remember. But everything about it, just looking at it, there's no denying which one of these packages of meat was preserved naturally, just simply by freezing it with no added preservatives, no added preservative gases, just wrapped up and frozen, versus this one that has that little soaker pad to catch all the water and juice that comes out of it. It's not juice, it's just water. Water mixed with blood. So those are some differences that really are legitimate between what we offer and what you can buy commercially.
Wow. I had no idea. I mean, I knew about dry age. I knew about the soaker pad. It's just, it kind of it just grosses me out. And what's funny is I went to Safeway down the street here the other day and just picked up a couple things. And I took the list of the 30-pound box you have. And I asked the butcher there, I said, this is what I need. And I was like, if it's possible, is it dry aged, at least 14 days? And he just kind of looked at me and he was like, no, but it was like almost like he didn't want to answer that question. And he was shocked that I even knew what I was talking about.
Yeah.
The cost of 30 pounds of what I asked for in your 30-pound box was about $340. So
348?
340, yeah. So it was a lot more expensive. Wow. And
yeah,
he said,
just for anybody that's listening to this, our price right now is $215 plus $30 shipping. $245 puts it on your doorstep.
Yeah, see it. So, those of you guys that are listening to this, and if you're fitness freaks, if you're big into what you're putting in your body, this is definitely something you definitely want to give a shot. He's got the 30-pounders, and I think he's got the
my little boy is coming to ask his daddy.
Sure.
Bubba, I'm on the phone. When I'll come get you when we're done, okay? Yep, I'll come get you when we're done.
So, yeah, those of you guys that are listening in, you want to give it a shot, definitely, get your feet wet and order some product. But what I want to try to do is get a bunch of us together and order enough to make it worthwhile. Maybe we can have you drive out and meet you in person. But another question I wanted to ask is, outside of the business part of it, or I should say the business, but outside of the product itself, when you first started doing this, you said you did Facebook for marketing. Is that all the marketing you're doing, that and just like belly to belly talking to people? Are you doing any type of big advertisements, anything like that?
You know, we ran a little bit of newspaper material, not much. We did end up doing one interview with the local news TV station, and got just a smidge of publicity that way. We tried Craigslist early on, didn't seem to have a lot of success that way. The driving factor for why I believe we've used Facebook is because it basically lets me be able to have a chance to start a conversation with somebody. And, you know, what we're offering here, I can describe it, what we're doing over and over in all sorts of different written literature or even video if we wanted to, but it's hard to make that just an impulse buy. Well, yeah, I want 200 pounds of meat by just looking at it and reading it. But Facebook allows me to open the door to have a conversation with someone. And just like I'm talking to you, if I can have that conversation with someone, the chances for them to realize that this is a good deal and they want to try it just go up exponentially. And so it's a lot more work, so to speak, in that it takes a lot more time to make these individual sales like that, instead of just, you know, you have this internet product funnel that you convince everybody to buy your product and then hook them in with a subscription. You know, I've just kind of kept the golden rule mentality. I'm a little old fashioned. I want to try to treat people the way I'd want to be treated. That's why we price our product at a price that I'd be willing to pay. Like, I'm not the cheapest meat out there, don't get me wrong, but I am less expensive than a lot of other places because I'm not trying to be greedy. I want to be the best value of beef that you can find. And to explain that to someone, explain it personally, and then explain it word of mouth wise. My customer tells somebody else because I legitimately treat them well. And I'm kind of excited to see how this little project goes, because trying to streamline this process of people getting to meet me, you know, that's kind of what I see we're trying to do here. What I think you talk about inside marketing. I think those two, telling my story and meeting with people personally, I think those goals kind of align, intermesh here. So I'm excited to see how we turn out, and if I am able to strike up some relationships because of it.
Yeah, I think, you know, nowadays people look at, you know, the customer experience, you know, and I say customer experience when some businesses call it customer service. You know, really, to me, the customer experience is where it's at. And that experience people have, they just share it like crazy. And, you know, when you go to a business and they give you just amazing service, and that experience you have is, you know, top shelf and off the charts, they're super excited, and they're so willing to go out and share the story and share what they experienced there. It's so much easier than where it's like, you know, if somebody has a bad experience, of course, yeah, they say, you know, someone has a bad experience, they tell a lot more people than compared to when they had a good experience. But, you know, having this type of interaction and sharing people your story, sharing people what it's about, the pros and cons, and them seeing you in person, even if it's just like video, they're going to feel more at home and more comfortable. Like when I first visited your website, it already had that family feel to it, you know. And then when I spoke to you on the phone, then I was like, immediately I got the presence or the experience of who you were as an individual. And now hearing even more information and more of your story, you know, it just makes me more willing to want to purchase this type of product from you than going to the store. And speaking to, you know, my girlfriend about this, she's excited to try it, just because not too many people don't eat meat, but there is that crew that don't. But you've got a product here that, you know, everybody enjoys. Well, most people enjoy, and getting you in front of them and explaining it is just, I feel, one of the best ways to do it. And we've got a large group of followers, and, you know, like I said, the fitness community is massive out here, and just letting them know, you know, what's going into their body compared to having, you know, a guessing game when they go to the store, you know, it's, to me, is extremely powerful. And it
doesn't hurt when when you try it, and ours tastes better and costs less money compared to Colorado prices.
Right. Yeah, you should have seen that. I wish I should have taken my phone in there and videoed it, but I wasn't even thinking about that. But yeah, the look he gave me it was interesting.
Yeah.
So next, what I would like to ask is, for here in Colorado, I'm going through your site now and I see the schedule here. So these schedules are just for local drop-offs, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Up at the very top, we just added this feature, actually, the top of our website. We added delivery dates. So go down there a little bit, upcoming delivery dates. I'm not Amazon. I don't have a great big warehouse full of beef. What we do is about every 2-3 weeks, I network with other area farmers, and we take the best of what we have, and we take 2, 3, 4 head of cattle to the butcher shop. And so that lets us be able to have a fresh supply. And the idea is we get rid of that supply and bring in another one. So right now we have Nebraska drop sites about once to twice a month. I make that delivery run across Nebraska along I-80. We shoot for every Monday to be able to ship any orders. If you want to ship your beef to Colorado, we keep a limited amount in our freezers. We've got a homemade walk-in cooler and an assortment of freezers that we bought on Facebook sites to be able to keep and store a limited amount to have available to people. So we don't, and of course, when you're shipping meat, you have to be careful. You don't want it to ship over the weekend. You don't want your meat shipping and sitting in a warehouse when it's 90 degrees for any longer than necessary. So our goal is just to keep it simple. We try to ship on Mondays, and then that way we can ship nationwide. If you're in Colorado, unless you're on the western side of the mountains, you can expect your beef the next day. You'll expect it on Tuesday. If for some reason we've sold out and you have to wait until our next beef is ready from the butcher shop, you're looking at a potential of a couple week wait, basically, if we do sell out. But we notify you. We make sure, and we just communicate. We're not big business. We can just talk to people. We'll send you an email. We'll call you on the phone. We'll let you know the process. And I like to think of ourselves as if you want to go to a good restaurant, you're probably going to have to wait for a little while. You're probably going to have to get a reservation, and that's us. If you want convenient, run down to Walmart. If you want something good, we'll get it to you in a timely fashion, but it'll take us just a little bit.
Yeah, good point. And that brings up, speaking of the fitness community, so many people who are, just getting started in the community and they're trying to, lose weight or, gain weight, whatever it is, or if they're just seasoned fitness people, this is no different. I mean, what they'll do is, and just speaking from experience, we'll look at the week, we'll look at our menu, we'll prep our meals, and we're good to go. So here, if you have to place an order and wait a week or wait for, the next, shipment, that shouldn't be an issue at all, because most people, they're already going to be waiting anyway, or they're pre-planning everything and they go to the store on Sunday and then they prep on Monday, whatever it is. So that's no big deal. Here it's just, you're getting a big lump sum, which comes up to another point that I had somebody ask me the other day is, buying that much meat up front, sometimes people might say, oh my gosh, I got to spend $250 to get this thing shipped here. And that's a lot of meat at once. I can just go to the store, grab, what I need. But it's like, that goes right into, you planning out and having a plan and making a schedule. So it really makes no sense to even, bring up any type of objection on spending $200 or $150 on product that you're going to have in your freezer anyway. So that is pretty simple. I'm sure you've probably had people bring that concern up to you, right? Spending.
Sure. A couple of things. One to what you're saying, and then one logistical point about freezer space. When we started, of course, family farm beef box. When we started, we had the idea that if this worked, it was going to be bigger than just Glade Smith, and that's why we're not Glade Smith Farms for a couple of reasons. One, nobody knows who Glade Smith is, anyways, and we did a little market research and asked people on name alone, who would you buy beef from? And well, Family Farm, I knew people like Family Farm, so I just put Family Farm Beef Box as one of the names. Realistically, of all the people surveyed, nobody wanted Glade Smith beef except for my mother. So that is what it is, and that's fine. And so, but we knew that if it worked, I wouldn't be able to supply all the beef anyways, because it's hard to have a steady supply through the year. That's very tricky from the beef production standpoint. So we network with other family farmers, but we're called, we wanted to emphasize the family. Of course, I've got 5 kids, and that picture is a little outdated. Mama is pregnant with baby number 4 in that picture. That is myself and my wife and 3 of my kids. We do support families, and whether it's for families or whether it's for the fitness community, like you're saying, buying $200 worth of meat and putting it in your freezer, it forces intentionality. It forces you to plan ahead, because that I can tell you all day long how good of a deal it is, and it saved you $100 versus the grocery store in Colorado, but you still have to budget for the $200 some dollars. Eventually, it pans out, but you have to go ahead and commit that, all right, we're going to have X number of meals over the next month or so, and we've got meat in the freezer, and we're going to use it. We're not going to go out to eat. It forces intentionality to eat better. I've had people tell me that they've started eating better because, look, they spent their money and it's in the freezer. If you want to eat something, well, shucks, you got to eat good beef. But, that's available to them. They didn't buy Doritos. They didn't buy whatever. They spent their money on good food, and they feel better now. That on the fitness side of things, on the family side of things, part of our mission was, there's so many things that just take our time today. You got kids growing up, so many people do, and we're just full of stuff. Not evil stuff, but Johnny's got baseball, Susie's got dance, and we're just running 100 miles an hour in every direction, and it's hard to sit down and have a meal together, sharing that family time and experiencing that life together. And we just feel like that family time is important. Those are the things that those kids are going to look back on in 20 years. Sharing those memories, creating that life together. So that's what we wanted to be, an affordable price with a great product, with, pushing that intentionality that, hey, you've got all this meat in the freezer. We're going to have to sit down and have a meal together because we're going to eat this good meat. We paid for it. And then lo and behold, it tastes good too, and everybody likes it. So we really felt like we were a blessing to people in disguise by just forcing that intentionality. Logistics, how much space does this take? Well, that's a lot of meat, isn't it? Am I going to have to go buy a freezer? By design, we realize not everybody has a freezer, or we realize that freezer space is limited. So at 30 pounds, you're looking at, you need about 1 cubic foot of freezer space to fit that 30 pounds. That is percent, but the majority of the space above your refrigerator, there's still room for ice cream. You can, sit there in Tetris blocks, play Tetris in there and stack up the meat up above your fridge, and it'll all fit, and there's more space available. If you've got a freezer underneath, I can tell you from experience, our fridge inside, we've got that bottom drawer freezer with two trays. Maybe half of one of those trays will hold 30 pounds of beef. You stack it in there good, and it doesn't take that much space. So you don't need to, oh man, I can't buy one until I go buy a whole freezer. No, it's not like that. You might have to trash some 3-year-old Hot Pockets, but you can make it work.
That's great. It's funny. We have one of the freezers that's underneath too, and you bring Hot Pockets, and it's pretty funny. We just got rid of a bunch of stuff like that.
Yeah, trash them and put in something good. So
yeah. So one thing that when we were chatting on the phone the other day, I was really shocked to hear it, and you mentioned food stamps, and so you guys accept food stamps, is that right?
Yeah, it was something that people were asking us about, and I know the majority of other, if you want to order meat from somebody else, or especially if you want to order homegrown meat, there's very limited options if you receive EBT, and a lot of that is it does cost money, and it did take me close to 6 months to get approved through the process. And for the normal farmer, say a lot of people say, well, I know somebody that raises cattle, and for one thing, I'm not against other farmers raising beef. I tell people, I think feeding people is a noble profession, and farmers should be on the same team. And so if you're getting meat from your whatever, great. I'm not trying to get your business from them. Support your friend's uncle. Most likely he does 3 or 4 head of cattle a year, and they're all ready at the same time, and you got to find somebody to split them up with. it doesn't make sense for him to spend the money and spend the time to accept food stamps. And plus, if you're buying a half a beef, most people can't swing $1,000 worth of food stamps anyways. 100 to 200 bucks, all of a sudden that fits in the budget. That is, and specifically some of the folks that pay for their beef with EBT and tell me, that has forced them to eat healthier because they're not buying the Doritos and Hot Pockets, to be honest. And so it's been a good thing for them, or they've told me that they think it's been a good thing for them. So yeah, we're excited to be able to do that. We can arrange to ship your order to you and accept EBT. We basically just have to do it manually, and the shipping needs to be charged separately. And so there's a little more of a process that's involved to meet all the qualifications for accepting EBT, but it can happen, and we do it all the time.
That's cool. That really interested me because it just I've never heard that before, and I've seen a lot of the online other big companies that are doing something somewhat similar that's not even an option. So I mean, that just comes down to you being out there to help even more families that really need it. And that's cool.
Sure. It takes a lot more effort on my part, which is probably why the big companies don't have the time or manpower to do it.
Right. That makes sense. So, I mean, looking at your website, it makes it pretty easy to go on here. I mean, if people go and shop, hit the shop online button, and then basically they're just choosing what package they want to start off with. And I noticed here you got a trial size that you're going to start up again, it looks like in fall, maybe? Is that right?
Yeah, we're family farm beef box. We emphasize on the beef. I do have a neighbor that raises pork, and I happened to have married a hog farmer's daughter, and so it was only a matter of time before we offered pork as well. But I've got a neighbor, and he's retired, but he's got a few sows, and he does a good job and raises pigs, but it's a little more seasonal. Most of the pork that is sold nowadays, to be honest, my father-in-law will raise about 100,000 pigs a year. And so it's a lot, and that's kind of an average size for hog farmers. There's not very many guys that just have 10 or 20 anymore. So there again, I'm a big believer that the quality of beef we have is better than the grocery store. I honestly think the quality of pork that's fresh is as much or more different in quality from the grocery store. So we wanted to be able to do that. But at the same time, I don't necessarily have the time or resources to raise pork, but here we are, the neighbor's doing it. We bought pork for him from years, and he had some extras. So we basically last spring, we butchered eight hogs, and then we did another 8. And we got those. We're just about all sold on those. I've got 2 left of the family farm beef pork boxes. I can make a couple more, and then I'll be just cleaned out of pork, aside from the pork that I promised Mama that she could have, because my family's got to eat good too. So, but I talked to him the other day, and we went and looked at the little piggies, and sometime about November we'll have some more ready, and I'll let people know when that's ready. But there again, we just do a good job with what we're doing, and we're a niche little producer. And so sometimes we have it, sometimes we don't. Kind of back to the fancy restaurant. Sometimes you might go for the special that night is a blackened ribeye, but if you get there late, they're going to be sold out. That's just the way it works. And so there's a limited supply of these things. If we sell out of beef one week, I can't just run out to the pasture and grab some steaks off of somebody and ship them to you. These things take a lot of time and logistics to make it work. And so maybe at some point we'll be able to kind of streamline that pork scenario to be able to offer it all the time. And people ask me all the time about chicken too. I've got chickens. We raise our own eggs. They're delicious. If you're eating grocery store eggs, a lot of little farmers have a few chickens. Buy those eggs. They're better. Chicken meat is a whole another story. Chicken is so cheap at the grocery store. I pride myself on being competitively priced. Beef is pretty easy to do, to be competitively priced. Chicken is a little trickier, where I'm not going to be able, I don't see any way to be competitively priced with that grocery store chicken that might be $1 a pound or something. You can't raise a chicken for $5-6 total unless you have 1 million of them, which is what all the chicken farmers do now. So we're still kind of looking through the logistics of how much can we feasibly expect to responsibly charge for a chicken meat, because indeed, it is better, so it is worth a little more, but we also can't do it just for fun and for free. We need to make a little bit of money on it. There needs to be a little profit involved because there's expenses, and so I would say as of this point, we're a little ways off from figuring out the chicken scenario, but I'm working on it.
Awesome. Yeah, that was one question I was going to ask, was about chicken. So the last kind of question I want to ask you has to do with just being the entrepreneur. So I know there's a lot of people in our group, and a lot of people will see this video, but there's a lot of people in the group that are, starting to create their own little business based off of, their passion. And I'm seeing more and more stories pop up, and people are starting to create an income and almost ready to, leave the 9 to 5 and go full time on their own business. Is there some advice that you would give to people who are watching this that are, they have a passion and they're thinking about, or maybe they're in the midst of trying to, turn that passion into a business? Do you have any advice for them?
Mm-hmm. A while back, somebody asked me what we were doing that was different that made this venture successful, because other people point out all the time, well, just find a local farmer and buy beef from them. I'm not the first farmer to try to sell meat out of their home place, but most people haven't been able to sell meat from their home place on this scale by any stretch of the imagination. So what did we do that was different? I have 3 things that I believe I've focused on that has allowed me to separate myself from what would be the normal experience that people have. The first is that you have to be aggressively friendly. And what I mean is, basically, if you decide what your product's going to be and then put out a sign and maybe throw a few dollars at advertising and wait, pretty good chance nothing's going to happen. I think back to my childhood when we had my first sweet corn stand along the side of our road. And you have to understand, where I live, not many people go by on that road. But so there I was with my little sign and little stand of selection of sweet corn, waiting for somebody to stop. I waited there all day and nothing happened. And my father showed up and he said, how's the sales going on? I haven't sold any, Dad. And he said, well, I don't think you're trying hard enough. And he took that sign and he walked over to the side of the road, and the next car that went by, he held that sign above his head, and that car pulled into the driveway and bought some sweet corn. I saw him trying harder. I saw him being aggressively friendly. You don't want to be rude. You don't want to be pushy. You don't want to be a used car salesman. But you have to go and be friendly and meet somebody. And if you're sitting around waiting, you have to think of a way to go meet somebody. Number 2 is that you have to be amusingly innovative. And in this, I mean, you can't sell a product that somebody already has. Like you can't do the same thing. But being different isn't in itself enough either. I jokingly say you have to be different and cute. So, figure out what makes you different and make it amusingly innovative. And then you give a person a reason to look into and possibly buy your product. And the last and maybe most important aspect is you have to be obsessively dedicated. This doesn't happen by accident. If you really like working set hours and having paid time off and company provided insurance, being an entrepreneur is not for you. If you want to work incessantly, incalculable hours for little to no money with a chance to change the world, that's what being an entrepreneur is. And you just have to do it because you're dedicated to it. You have to be obsessively dedicated. Wow.
That's impressive. That's awesome advice too. I mean, just being in the industry of working for myself and open and failed multiple times. I don't think I've ever heard anybody explain it that way. And that's impressive. That's really cool. So guys, here I just want to kind of just recap a little bit. if you're coming to the site for the first time for the Family Farm Beef Box, it's just familyfarmbeefbox.com. You've got multiple options here to try the beef from Glade here. My advice is, get your feet wet, give it a shot, and let's support someone locally and an entrepreneur as well. If you guys get questions, he's got a very the Facebook page they have is just full of testimonies, a lot of reviews, people letting him know exactly how they feel about the products. So go take a look at that. It's easy to find. Just put in there Family Farm Beef Box, and you'll find it super easy. It stands out. And or of course you can click on this video. There's a link to his website right in the description. So if you guys get questions, feel free to reach out to him. And I appreciate you guys for listening in. Glade, stick around here real quick. I'm going to go ahead and stop this. I want to chat with you again.
Okay.